I'm Shakil from the Republic 2.0, and today we're going to do the May 2025 IAL Edexcel International Physics Paper 1. So in the Unit 1, we have got the first 10 multiple choices. In this part of the video, we'll try to solve the first 10 multiple choices. You've got this question number 1. A cube of volume V is placed in a liquid of density ρ. The cube displaces the weight of the liquid. Which of the following gives the magnitude of the upthrust acting on the cube? So we just need to talk about that. How can we calculate the magnitude of the upthrust? So, if you have done chapter number 2, you must know that the upthrust acting on a body is an upward force exerted by a liquid onto a body. And that would always be equal to the weight displaced of the liquid in which you have immersed the body. So you can see that the weight of the liquid which was displaced was W. So what does that mean? That the upthrust would also be equal to W. So that is going to be the right answer. Now you've got this question number 2. A seesaw is a uniform beam that balances on a support. The beam can rotate around the top of the support. Two children of equal weight. If they do have equal weight, what does that mean? That the downward force exerted by this girl should be equal to the upward force exerted by this boy. So what does that mean? That the summation of the forces, the resultant forces, has to be 0. And they're also at equal distances. If they're at equal distances, their moment would be the same as well. But the resultant moment has to be 0 because this one has to be counterclockwise and this one has to be clockwise and this one has to be counterclockwise. So the resultant moment comes out to be 0 as well. That is why for this multiple choice, we're going to go with A. Now you've got the diagram shows a ball of mass moving at a speed v along the horizontal table. And then you've got a ball of mass 2m and 2p. Which of the following gives the time taken between the second ball leaving the double table and landing on the floor? So we need to calculate the time, and I would be using the equation of motion, the second equation of motion, which says that S is equals to ut plus half at square. So the distance, I can keep the distance to be the height. So I'm just substituting it with height. The initial velocity of the ball has to be 0. So 0 plus 1 by 2 gt square. From this expression, t square should be equal to 2h upon g, meaning thereby t is equal to the square root of 2h upon g. What does that mean? That the time would always be the square root of 2h upon g. So it is not affected by the mass, it is not affected by the velocity. It is just affected by the height and the gravitational acceleration. So t comes out to be 2h upon g. So whatever the time was taken by the first ball, the same time would be taken by the second ball if you've got the height same. So yeah, we're going to go with the option number B. Now you've got this question number 4. The forces acting on a person sitting on a chair are weight and normal contact force. Which of the following gives a reason why these forces do not form a Newton's third law pair? So first of all, the chair is stationary. Well, whenever Newton's third law pair of forces act on a body, the body has to be at stationary. So that is why you cannot go with the option number A. The force is acting in the opposite direction. Whenever the Newton's third law pair forces are acting, the forces must act in opposite directions. This is not also true as well. The forces act on the same object. Well, that is wrong. Remember that for the Newton third law pair, the forces must act on different objects. So this is right. This is not these kind of forces are not going to form the Newton's third law pair. So this is the right answer. And D, the forces have the same magnitude. Well, even if you're talking about the Newton third law pair, the forces should have the same magnitude. So that is also a condition for the Newton third law pair. So that could also not be the answer. Now, a wire is hung from a picture from a hook on a wall. The wire exerts T1 and T2 on the picture, and you need to describe the relationship between the forces. So if you're talking about the relationship between the forces, the weight must be equal to negative T1, negative T2. Weight is acting downwards and T1 and T2 are acting upwards. That is why I'm taking their negative signs into consideration. Okay. So by arranging this equation, I can have W plus T1 plus T2, and that must be equal to 0. Okay. Is that clear? So you have got the B part as the right answer. Okay. Now you've got this question number 6. An object has a constant non-zero acceleration. Which of the following displacement time graphs could represent the motion of an object? First of all, for this question, you must know that how you talk about the displacement time graph. Well, remember that displacement time graph basically you can calculate the velocity by calculating the gradient. The gradient would get you the velocity. You can see that in the option number A, the body has a constant gradient. So what does that mean? The velocity would be constant, so acceleration has to be zero. So A cannot be the answer. If you look into B, similarly in the B as well, the body's velocity is decreasing at a constant rate. So this acceleration would also be equal to zero. Over here, the acceleration would be equal to zero as well in this part, right? So the only way you can see that the bodies have a constant gradient over here and then a constant gradient over here. So it is a positive velocity. Over here, the velocity must be decreasing. So that is why we must be having a non-zero constant acceleration for this one. Now, for the question number 6, you have got the forces acting on the helicopter are shown, 500 upwards, 15,000 downwards, 200 on the forward, resultant forces. So, if you want to calculate the resultant forces, first of all, you need to talk about the forces, the resultant forces acting along the y-axis. And that must be 15,000 minus 14,500 square plus 200 square. That is how you'll calculate the resultant forces, and that must be it. So the final option going to be the B part. Now, if you have got this question number 8, a box of weight slides down the ramp, right? A box of weight slides down the ramp. The ramp is at an angle theta to the horizontal. Frictional force effects on the box is shown. Which of the following is correct when the box moves at a constant speed? If the box is moving at a constant speed, the force acting in this direction must be equal to the backward resistive forces. So what does that mean? This has to be the perpendicular component of weight, meaning thereby W sine theta. So F must be equal to W sine theta so that this box can move down at a constant speed, right? So that is why I'm going to go with the option number C. Now you've got this question number 10, and we need to calculate which the following expression gives force in newtons. So we need to calculate the force. If you remember a formula, power was equal to F times V, right? And if you are looking for the force, force must be equal to P upon V. You have got the power and you have got the distance and time for the velocity. So I'm just going to plug their values in. The power must be 50 times 10 raised to the power of 3, and the velocity must be 13 divided by 2.3. This 2.3 could get into the numerator. So 50 times 10 raised to the power of 3 times 2.3 divided by 30. That is how you'll calculate the final force. Is that clear? At the end of the day, you've got this question number 10, and you've got the 3M, you've got this truck is moving with a velocity v. This is the mass of M truck. The velocity is 2v. And we need to, which is the following expression gives the new speed of the train and truck, right? So, first of all, the initial momentum of this object, let it be 3 mv. Now, since this truck is moving in the opposite direction, this should be minus 2 mv. And after the collision, they move off together. So their velocity must be the same, but their masses must be 3m plus m times v. So 2mv minus 2mv must be mv is equals to 4mv. That is the final velocity, v hash, I can call it. And then v hash comes out to be mv divided by 4m, and that should be v by 4. So A is the right answer. So, in this part of the video, we're done with the first 10 multiple choices. In the next video, I'll be able to do the questions from 11 onwards. Thank you very much. Please share and subscribe the channel. Thank you very much.